Robert Tucker.
Here.
Dennis Barnum. Ignacio Alegre. Sandy Nino.
Here.
Anthony Sandoval.
Here.
Dr. Ana Jimenez Jami.
Here.
Jackie Razo Garcia. Jorge Martinez.
Here.
Ana Patricia Curiel. Lucinda Solorzano.
Here.
Thank you. We have quorum.
Thank you. Do the pledge of allegiance. Jorge, you want to lead it?
Guys, here we go. Thank you.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice.
Public comments. This is the time for any public comment to be held at the beginning of the meeting on non-agenda items. Are there any public comments? Okay. Not seeing any. Let's move on to the agenda. Are there any excused absences?
We have two.
Okay. And for the record, they are.
Ana Patricia Curiel
Okay.
and Dennis Barnum.
Okay, great, thank you. Business calendar. Ranking of provider requests.
But we need to vote on the,
Oh, on the consent, I'm sorry. All in favor, was there a motion to approve the consent?
I'll make your motion.
Is there a second? Okay,
Second.
any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Not too fast. Business calendar, the ranking of youth provider requests for proposals for TY 2023 through 2027.
Do we want to move the reports to the?
Oh, yes, yes. We'd like to, we'd like to make a motion to change the, change the sequence of the agenda to start the provider reports first. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor of changing the agenda slightly, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, let's go to operator reports, YSPM.
Well, some of the information that's going to be provided on the reports from the two providers, OPCAC and Conservation Report, is going to be very similar. So I'm just going to give the general breakdown regarding current enrollments for program year 22-23. There is a total of 43 youth that are currently enrolled under We Enroll program. We are also right now just completing majority of third quarter follow-ups. And also probably since we're coming to the end of the program year, YSPN will be providing technical assistance regarding closures and probably provide some guidance regarding follow-ups for those youth that will be exiting at the end of June. Also, just wanted to just make an extra note. We were at a conference out in Indianapolis, the NYEC conference, and it was quite interesting that the majority of the topics regarding youth has to deal with apprenticeships and mental health. And mental health is such a big thing all over the nation. Everybody was talking about, what services can we provide besides getting you employed, educated, etc. Just dealing with mental health. So that's it for me. Any questions?
If I can add to that too, I know one of the things that they had mentioned was the trauma informed, huge on trying to implement that into staff getting trained on trauma informed, only because during the time frame of the COVID and even before then, I don't think that the youth were or learned the coping mechanisms for some of the things that they were encountering. And so there was a big push for not only how to implement trauma informed into your program, but within trauma that youth with disabilities have also endured. And I know Juan attended one of those workshops. So it was just last week, we're in the process of trying to catch up. So we're hoping to download a lot of the information. Everything was not virtual, but digital, so we're able to download the PowerPoint, some of the templates, some of the information. So we're hoping to share more of that information via email and hopefully implement some of the new information that we received from the actual conference and bring it here home. It was nice to be able to sit across from people from all over the United States, from New York, Chicago, New Orleans. We had people from Arkansas, Washington, and hearing that there was similar situations that they were dealing with and issues with regards to mental health, enrollment, COVID issues, and trying to pivot and how they changed was really eye-opening and refreshing to see it, that we're not just here in California, but it's all over. So it was nice to be able to experience that and then get some best practices on what they're doing across the United States.
I think it's also why the United States this time. In many countries.
And probably worse in some areas.
Oh, yeah.
The other thing I know Juan didn't mention is that we're also working on monitoring. So I know the providers, Juan has been going now to do program monitoring and EO monitoring. So it's that time where everybody starts getting calls with regards to fiscal monitoring from MDG, in addition to ourselves with our program monitoring. And then we internally, as the Workforce Development Board and Youth Council, youth programs and our adult programs, get calls from the state to get monitored also. So it's busy, but just know that we're working behind the scenes trying to provide the technical assistance and making sure that our system's in place and healthy. That's it.
We'll go on to the Orange County Children's Therapeutic Arts Center.
Hi guys, I'm gonna hand out these sheets. I only made 10 copies that way, not so you could take one and pass it down. But we also brought a youth with us, so this will be our success story. This is Rosie, so we'll start with her.
Hello. My name is Rosie Lord.
Hi.
Very fun to be here today. I am, as you heard, a participant of the YET program. Pretty nice. I've been interning with the early start program that they have there, which has been fantastic. I realized that I'm more a child than I knew. And I think could be all over the place. As it were. Through the early start program as well, I also got hired on and recruited by the music staff there. So I wanted to by at the USD. So after schools, I'm teaching ukulele throughout elementary schools, which is amazing. You get to see these little guys perform at the end of classes all the time, trying to get them out of their, shells, which is fun. That's pretty cool. They've been helping me out with getting gas cards. They've also helped me seek counseling, which is fantastic because as this wonderful man has pointed out earlier, what mental health care is very important. Yeah, everywhere. And
You're helping the kids with mental health by providing with it.
I hope so. They're cool kids. And the amount of things I'm with here. Me, you can ask questions if you like.
Thank you, Rosie.
I do have to say something. She really is a superstar. You are. She's amazing. She works 3 jobs right now.
Also over at Disney.
Yeah, she works at Disney. She works in the mornings for the early childhood program, right? As she said. Plus, she's so talented that the music department hired her to work, with the SAUSD program. She's amazing. And I want to thank Anthony here who introduced her. That's what I was saying. Thank you, Anthony. He introduced Rosie to our program. You're amazing. Keep up the good work. Yeah.
Yeah, she definitely is amazing. Thank you, Rosie. So, does anyone have any questions? No? Okay, I'll proceed. Yes.
The program, SAUSD, is it with the after school program or that? Okay.
It's with Engage 360. Yeah. I like show.
Right. Yeah.
Thanks.
No problem. All right, guys, so I'm gonna move on. You guys have in front of you a report, and this is for the current as of the last 3 months of our last week. So we currently have we enrolled our 20 participants. Last time we were here, we were short 2, so they began in March. 16 of them are out of school, 4 are in school, and are barriers. So we have 20 youth that are basic skill deficient, 5 with disabilities, 19 with poor work history, 4 foster youth, 4 homeless youth, and we have 2 parents, and they're both single parents, single mothers, that is. As far as work experience goes, so within our placement, 14 of our youth are employed through OCTAC or they're in school. And so the programs that we offer, the things we have are childcare work, and 5 of our youth are employed through the early start program, like Rosie mentioned. We also have 8 youth in our digital arts and media. And the digital arts and media program, there's 3 different courses. You can either go into comic book creation or animation, which is really cool. A lot of youth are into that. And then we also have like a Google class where they learn about media content, about advertising. It's a very nice class, and it's also a video production class. We also have a youth that works in IT and technology. We also have our SAUSD, so Rosie, our music instructor, and we have one currently that's in office work. Moving down, we have 7 of our participants are currently employed outside, and it's either, most of them are part-time, but we do have 1 youth that is employed full-time outside of OCTAC, and he did begin his work experience with us, and then he did move out, and he's currently working full-time. But we have someone working as a library assistant. We have 2 in retail, 1 in hospitality, 1 healthcare worker, the full-time within construction, and then we have 1 currently that just got a job in she's an ABA specialist, which is applied behavioral analysis. Analyst, sorry. And then 5 of our youth are currently in school. 2 are still in high school. They will graduate this June. We have 3 enrolled in community college, and when we started, we only had, I believe, 2, so 1 enrolled this spring. We have 2 attending Health State courses. And this is our chart. And as far as follow-ups, I will say, so we have 2 that were carried over to our 21 official follow-ups. I will say that because it's hard to reach them. A lot of them don't answer the phone. A lot of them don't pick up their text messages. And never really come to the center besides 1 follow-up that's very current and still taking classes. However, this is data from our last meeting where we kind of still got information, but 19 of them were basic skills deficiency, 8 have disabilities, 17 were poor work history, 2 were high school dropouts, 4 were parents, and then 2 were foster youth. So that is where we are right now. Does anybody have any questions, any comments?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Orange County Conservation Board.
I have our report here. We'll pass them down. So I'll go ahead and start with our success story as well. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to make it in person today because we did have surgery on Monday. But we did want to kind of highlight him, you know, and he was asking if there was another one he can kind of attend. So he was pretty upset that he wasn't here. So he did send me something, so I can go ahead and read that for everybody. So it goes, my name is Aiden. I'm a former foster youth, and I made bad decisions along the way that led me into probation. I was brought to OC Conservation Corps by a referral from Orangewood Foundation. My brother and I started working at the Corps at the same time on the crew. I spent 8 months working on the crew, and I learned a lot of new skills like how to use certain tools and how to work as a team. I was able to meet people from different backgrounds, and I liked the community that was created there. I especially enjoyed being able to work outside to help take care of the city. I also entered the Public Works Certificate Program in the hopes of learning a new career option. After one semester, I decided that it wasn't for me and learned how important it is to gain experience in various areas to make sure that I knew what career path to take. After leaving the Corps, I was able to start working full-time. I was finally released from probation last month, and I am currently working as a delivery driver, and I was looking into going into welding. I'm planning on getting certified and join the Welders Union. My time at the Corps taught me how to invest in myself and create a better life for myself and my family. Does anyone have any questions on Aiden's story?
It's an awesome story.
His brother, any updates on his brother?
Yes, so him and his brother actually are one of the few follow-ups that we maintain contact with. We actually see them every month. So Brandon is doing well. He currently is still employed with a staffing agency. And so he's doing more visual technician work. And so he's trying to get directly hired through the company he's at. So he, has that goal of, being, because like the company he's working for or working with is unionized. So he has a goal of, being in the union. So both of them are striving to, make their goals happen. So, and we're trying to help that become a reality for them as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think at the beginning you said something about working with apprenticeship program, yeah?
Yes, so we do have the Public Works Certificate, and that's through Santiago Canyon College. Yes, so they do, I believe it's 9 units that they complete, and then after that, they get a certificate.
And I was just wondering if this young man was able to get into welding through apprenticeship programs.
So he's currently just looking at schools. So different schools that he's learned out about through word of mouth. So he's had a couple friends go through these schools. So he's currently researching what school to kind of go through and, when's the right time and for him to actually enter the. Does anyone else have any questions?
I have a question, but just because he is former probation, he may be eligible for financial aid and other resources. So hopefully you guys are familiar with that or know that or not yet.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. All right. If we don't have any more questions on Aiden, I can go ahead and move on to our report then. So the first page is going to be our active year. So this is your program year 2022 to 2023. So back from, or the difference between the last youth councils, we did add one more participant. So we currently have 3 participants in our program. So for the barriers that they face, all of the youth did have basic skills deficiency. And we did do their testing on this as well. And 6 of them were high school dropout. 2 of them were offenders, 20 had poor work history. There was 1 participant who is parenting youth and they are a single mother. We have 1 that is foster youth and 16 that are experiencing homelessness. So the only difference from last time is our participant is added to the basic skills deficiency and their high school dropout as well. And all the high school dropouts do go through our schooling, our school that we're partnered with, which is CCPA. And so we are working with them to help them get their high school diploma. Highlighting the basic skills deficiency, that's in figure 2. As I mentioned before, we do the testing to see if they qualify for basic skills deficiency, and all of our youth do. So in the graph here, you'll notice that there's 22 on each one. So there were 2 participants that were scored deficiency in either one or the other. So that's why it says 22 instead of 23. Going on to figure 3, where discussing the work placement. So we do have various work placements for our youth. One of the main one is going to be our conservation and recycling departments within our conservation corps. And so we do have 8 that are currently placed there.
We do also have office administration, and that's going to be through our partnership with Goodwill. So we do have 2 youth that are in office administration. And we also have 1 participant who is in the IT department. They work through Goodwill as well. And then we also have 1 participant who works in retail, and again, that's going to be Goodwill too. And we also have 2 participants who are placed at our K-pop food bank, which we also have a partnership with too. And I also did want to highlight that we have 2 other participants who got directly hired recently. So I know that we're talking about work, the WEX placements, but that is something to highlight for them as well. Here, let's move on to our follow-up. So the follow-ups, again, as Octav mentioned, follow-ups are kind of hard to get into contact with. So some of this is going to be the same as last time. So for the program year 2021 to 2022, we did have 14 participants, and all 14 were basic skills deficient. 5 of them were high school dropouts, 4 of them were offenders, 8 had poor work history, 1 was a parenting youth, 1 was receiving CANF, 12 were experiencing homelessness, 3 had a disability, and 2 were foster youth. And moving on to hone in on basic skills deficiency, we did have all 14 participants score on the test, on the TABE-12 test, and they all were basic skill deficiency, but they did improve their scores in either one of the subjects or both of the subjects. Moving on to the certifications and credentials. We do have credentials that are offered through Conservation Corps, one of which, as I mentioned previously, is going to be the Public Works Certificate. So we do partner with San Diego County College to get our participants to enroll in those courses and complete the 9 units so they can maintain, or so they can gain their certificate of proficiency. So we actually did have 3 participants complete 1 semester coursework, and they all pretty much decided that it wasn't for them, went on to different things. But we also had 5 participants get their forklift credential as well. Here. Moving on to the next page here with the work placement. So participants, we have 10 of which that were placed in our conservation department, and that's working out in the field on crew. And we had 2 of them in our recycling department. We also had 2 individuals who were directly hired, and they were employed in warehouse assembly and also food industry. Let's see here. So the employment industry, so those who were placed in WEX were employed in different industries. So we had some of which who were employed in retail sales. So there was going to be 1 participant in there. We had 1 who was in the food industry, 2 who were stock clerk, warehouse, and we have 5 who were groundskeeper and landscaping. Moving on to the secondary education and post-secondary education. So as of April 5th, we did have 6 participants attend post-secondary education, and they had, had focused in the following areas. So we had CTE certification, we had forklift certification, and then we also had 1 participant who just recently started his pharmacy technician certification. But does anyone have any questions regarding our report? Yes.
Looks very good. And I'm very interested in learning about the pharmacy technician certification. Where did that happen?
So they are actually enrolled in Santa Ana College.
Okay,
And so they actually just started in February.
okay.
So we actually learned that going through our follow-up report that was due last week. Yeah,
Very
so
good.
yeah, so they're currently enrolled in 2 classes as of now.
Okay, very good.
Do
But
they have a full program there?
That I'm not sure. I'm not sure, but I noticed though that pharmacy technician is actually very, common. It's, I feel like a lot of youth are starting to kind of see that career as an option for them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That lane is,
Yeah.
good job, it's inside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can work different shifts too.
What does K-POP stand for?
Community option partnership.
Of Orange County.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just curious.
thank you.
I think it's different than the music.
The actual certification, this was done during follow-up, right? The CTE certification forklift, those were captured during follow-up, not prior to when they were enrolled.
I think that they were captured when they were enrolled. But she still added them as a follow-up.
Oh, I see. Okay. And then I noticed that you guys had high number of homeless youth. The categories of homeless, and they can be on the street, they can be couch surfing. What are you guys seeing within the population you guys are working with?
I find that they're either at a shelter or they're couch surfing. Those are the two most common ones.
And do you guys see towards the end, or how do you guys address those particular challenges that how do you help them with some kind of assistance? Are they able to have something more stable by the time they're done with your program?
A lot of them come from different programs. They've been noticing they're being placed in a transitional home. With Natalie, Natalie is part of this, the Santa Ana. She was actually given an apartment. So she was placed in an apartment. So they're being placed in those transitional homes. And then they are assisting them to get in their own place.
Oh, good.
So
Okay.
that's how it's been working. And we've been referring them to a lot. CityNet has been one that has been helping us a lot with our homes. Or our youth that are having issues with evictions. Just recently, about 2 months ago, I had one of my youth with their family and we contacted them and they were able to place them, actually give them a direct deposit for their person down. They've been
There's a lot
helping
of
us a lot.
programs popping up right now.
Yeah. Filters has been assisting us too. Yeah.
I think that, I know it's not part of our report out, but when I hear such a high number,
Yes.
it's just so heartbreaking that I'm assuming you guys are helping them, but it's
Yeah.
nice to hear that they're all coming to something more stable, but while they're in your program, and then definitely by the time they're done with all the services.
Yeah, another agency that's been helping us a lot is called the United. They've been helping.
United Health.
I like hearing that they're not on the street, that they're actually in shelter. It's a good start because I hope things just go up from there.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for the provider? Okay, we'll go back to the business calendar. Let's take them one at a time. The ranking of youth provider requests proposal 2023 to 27. Recommended action for item 1, accept the review committee's ranking of youth proposals to award future youth provider agreements utilizing funds from the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act for a 4-year procurement period ending June 30th, 2027. Do I hear a motion to approve? Is there a second? Okay, and Sandy, you want to discuss?
Yeah, so we received a total of 2 proposals, which was a little disheartening, I think, but as we ask questions and when we look at the providers that have left us, I know it's been challenging, and I know there's been quite a significant amount of money out there right now, and even for ourselves, I think we have money to be able to serve different populations. So we would have liked to have received a lot more proposals, but the 2 that we did receive, I think we were able to review and thoroughly ask questions. We asked each of the individuals or each of the agencies that provided proposals and invited them into the office to ask more detailed, clarified questions, give them an opportunity to also give us more information on anything that we might have had questions on. And that led to the final ranking of the 2 proposals that came in. As you can see with the second recommendation also on there to move forward with 1. And I will have some more information we can discuss during the the work study on how to move forward past this, but we are excited to be able to recommend one proposal. And we look forward to continue working with them. Should everybody vote? Any questions on the process or anything?
I just want to thank the other committee members
Yeah.
for your help. Thank you.
It was very time consuming, so I do appreciate your time. It is volunteer time, just like this committee is, and so it's nice when I hand you guys a set of proposals. Can you read this on your free time? That I get the volunteers to help me to do that, so I do appreciate that.
Okay, no further discussion. All in favor of item 1, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, motion carries. Item 2, recommend the Workforce Development Board requests City Council execute an agreement with the Orange County Children's Therapeutic Arts Center for $200,000 to serve 20 Santa Ana youth subject to availability of Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act youth funds. I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second? Discussion? Sandy? Anything?
No, I think we, like I mentioned, we had one left to nominate. We went with the initial highest ranking proposal, which was Dr. Anna's Children's Therapeutic Arts Center, and we're excited to have them on board should they get voted on. Other than that, I think we're looking forward to potentially looking at the remaining funds to either re-procure, but I'll discuss further in the work study session.
Okay, any further questions or comments regarding item 2? Not hearing any. Oh, no.
I just want to comment that, personally and in the community wise, their program is just amazing. And then they do service foster youth. I know we're a difficult population, but you guys do make an effort to try to engage them. And so I always appreciate that. Very much.
Thank you. Okay, all those in favor of approving item 2 for the Orange County Therapeutic Arts Center, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? 1 abstention. Okay, thank you and congratulations. Okay, that's the end of the business calendar. We'll move on to the work study session. Item 3, discuss options to re-release a youth request for proposal, ensure offering of the required 14 WIOA elements and possible option to bring in-house youth WEX activities for years 2023 and 2024.
So as you know, thank you to Dr. Anna, we're going to be moving forward with her proposal, but that leaves us with some remaining funds. We ideally get 2 years to allocate our funds and expend our funds. And so we are looking at some remaining funds that we need to do something with. And so that's why I bring it back to the committee so that we can discuss further. I know within our small rating committee, there was quite a bit of discussion, ideas that were brought up. And so I wanted to bring that back to all of you so we can discuss further. We have a very rough number. As you know, we don't have our allocation for this upcoming year, and we won't find out what that number is until probably May.
Probably in a few more weeks.
Yeah, and so it's always a little bit behind. So we anticipate getting the same funding.
At least we use that as our foundation.
Our guiding force.
I have a question, and I'm just surprised and kind of shocked. There was so many people here in the room for the technical, right? There were at least 7.
Yeah.
I don't know how many entities.
And at least 7 I saw. I'm really surprised.
I think, and
What do you
again,
think happened? I know that the process was different and it was technically challenging. So I'm just not.
we did have those comments come up and questions because we were astonished. And having done this in the past, for the past 10 years plus, I think we would see anywhere from 8 to 13 to 15 proposals.
Exactly.
And so just having received 2, was a little bit jarring, I think. And so that was one of the questions that we had, or that came up to the group. And so Bob said he was happy to investigate.
I mean,
Why don't you love us?
no, and maybe they'll be honest with Bob, but not with
To be,
staff.
I mean, to be more specific, there are more technical requirements.
Yes.
And some organizations may say it's very demanding and the money is okay. So do we have to push our politicians to fund us more? Because the funding isn't enough, and if a young person says, this is nice, but I can work for McDonald's for $19 an hour. So thank you, but
Yeah.
that's my work
Yeah,
experience.
that's
So much that they actually get from the programs to, you know, to be able to allow people to see that.
Exactly, and
I have a suggestion, but I may be biased. No, I may be not biased. No, I may be bringing more work to the team, which might not be happy with me about it.
all I need to do
Yes.
I honestly feel, I mean, trying to be extremely objective is like, we need, okay, let me take myself out of OCTAV. Forget that I'm with OCTAV, okay? To be fair, this is a really difficult grant application. Let's put it that way. It is very complex, okay? I mean, we've been doing this for 10 years, so we know
The RFP response,
The-
they're actually executing
everything
under the wheel of compliance.
both. And,
I agree.
but the technical assistance for new, I'm just wondering, is there a way that, I don't know, if we think that there is a really great organization that has good potential, I wonder if we could do some technical assistance or training a little bit more. I know there was a training, but maybe that was not enough for people that are completely new, that are just barely starting, or even they've been in operation for a long time, but when they look at this process and they say, wow, this is really complex, I need a little more support with understanding some of these requirements. You see what I'm saying? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there to think about it because I think it would make a difference, because when you think about government, you know, in the city, and, you know, when you think about, it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
So that's one. And then the other thing is like the time period was also kind of challenging because it was during the holidays. So that was also very challenging. And then number three is also the technical part of it, doing the online thing, you know, that's also challenging. And if there's, you know, hiccups and stuff like that, I'm just saying that it all could have been a factor that could have, you know, someone would say, wait, I don't want to apply. This is too complex and it's just very time consuming. And I don't know. I'm just saying that, I mean, we continue to be, and we're very extremely proud of the program. And thank you, Lucy, for, we want to continue to serve more and more foster youth and youth with disabilities and other barriers. And I just love this program because it's so important for this community, but it is a little bit of a headache when it comes, I mean, let's be honest, when it, so people will look at all the restrictions and like, I don't want to deal with so much restrictions, you know, but on the other side, how can we alleviate that? How can we be more supportive so that more people, so we're more inclusive with both long-standing organizations or some that are new but have good potential? I don't know, I'm just thinking that.
I'm kind of wondering if we give a lot of information about what we want when they get the paperwork. However, what came back this past time by the group that didn't make it, the program that didn't make it, was answers that didn't have anything to do really with how we wanted the questions answered. So maybe if we gave a little bit more of a support or almost a written,
Like a glossary kind of thing?
no, more of a written, fill in your stuff, but more of a written document, and then they just fill in their stuff. So not just a sentence, but we want you to touch base on this, and this, and then maybe more people will be able to write a proposal. Because Anna has a proposal. She has it down now, and I'm sure the first time she did it, it was like crazy to decide what you want. But now she knows. So if you could, give it a little bit more help, give them a little more help.
If I can-
writing.
If I can address some of those questions and legitimate concerns, I think, Deborah and I discuss this all the time too, is initially the navigator came up for that specific reason. Nowhere else, I think in California, do they even have a navigator.
Right.
RFPs go out and people have to apply and it's sink or swim.
Yeah.
It's you figure it out, this is
Right.
the money and this is where you get your answers. And then this is your performance. And so knowing the WIOA, I think we're like, it's not gonna happen. I mean,
Right.
people don't know WIOA, they don't know. There's so many criteria and there was so many performance back then. So obviously it's evolved over the years. But that was the purpose behind the navigator, was to provide that technical assistance.
Right.
And so initially, when we did do the RFP, there was a lot of hand holding and I think not necessarily putting it all on paper, exactly what the requirements were for WIOA. So the RFP was a little bit softer.
Yeah.
It wasn't so scary.
Right.
And with that came agencies that were a little scary.
Yeah. Right.
And so I think that was something that we're like, I don't know that we have the bandwidth
Yeah.
to have such an intensive, because then you have more, obviously, it makes it easier for those individuals that have never, or agencies that have never dealt with federal or state programs to apply. But once they do get into it, and then it's okay, well, now you have to do all of this. Okay, well, we have to show your accountant how to do accounting. And we have to show your case managers how to do case management. And then we have to show them how to do paperwork. And then we have to show them,
Yeah.
it's like,
It's
we
a
should
lot
just
of,
do it ourselves.
yeah.
And so when you look at the overhead of that, that's kind of the discussions where we are. And I think we've had them with Bob too, is like, if we continue to pay the overhead, but we're using the navigator to show them how to do the work,
Right.
there comes that question, is it more beneficial to the community to keep it in-house so that there's just one overhead and one other provider, and then provide the services and contract out individual services as needed, like tutoring and so forth, so that we're able to serve more youth. Because I think the regs and the state have made it that much more challenging, where before I think we could work with the credentials that we had, we had customer service and we had a food handler and we had forklift and getting your license. These were things that were so important to our youth and so challenging for our foster youth to get, or for youth that were homeless, or for a youth that were incarcerated, that it's an accomplishment that should get credit, but the state doesn't give us credit for it now. And so now they have to be enrolled in a college certification program that has staggered credentials, that needs to make sure that they do, 3 credentials so that they get the credit for that last credential, the overall credential. In addition to, the work experience, et cetera. So I think they've also gotten tighter on a lot of their allowances with some of the performances, which, trickles down. And then the providers also have those challenges, which makes it that much harder. Because then you look at the agencies, okay, well, we have one case manager that's working maybe part-time because they're working on other programs, having to really do some intensive wraparound services. And I think, Lucinda, when you look at foster youth, would half of a social worker be okay to work with one foster youth? No. And so we're working with the hardest to serve youth, from incarcerated youth to foster youth to homeless youth, with just half a person potentially that's working on. It's just not conducive to everything that it's asking for. So I think there has to be a balance, and that's where I come back to you guys, is this model still working? Do we look at it to see in this next year, where potentially there are options. We keep some of the money to provide, because some of the requirements that we have to make sure that we're in compliance with is our 20% work experience expenditure. So of our total funding that we receive, 20% of that needs to be expended on work experience. Dr. Anna Alone's program cannot sustain that entire thing. So we're gonna have to provide some work experience with that. We need to make sure that 70 to 80% of our funding is used on out-of-school youth. Dr. Anna has a great program with the majority of them being out of school, but she also has some in-school youth. So we need to make sure to cover that amount with the total amount. So there's certain things that we need to look at. And we have options. Like I said, we can definitely re-procure out in the fall to put some of that money out. Keep some money internally so we can start working that work experience and figure out maybe if our navigator can take on some of that responsibility of making sure that work experience gets expended within these 2 years. And hopefully incorporate maybe some apprenticeships. We're working with Santa Ana College to see if there's that connection along with CTE that maybe we can use to provide those credentials for our youth.
That's really a great idea right there.
And so,
Yeah.
Apprenticeship programs
Yes.
too. We used to have them at our city transition day.
Yeah.
They would come out from.
and our
They
biggest
look
thing,
great.
one of the things that I did learn at the conference was that they're looking at a youth initiative for youth apprenticeships from DOL. In addition to developing, DOL provided money to a particular entity to help coordinate with different agencies from workforce development boards to CTE to businesses to the college to develop more apprenticeship, in particular a cybersecurity apprenticeship that I'm looking into. I don't know all the details. Again, I'm diving into this because I would really like to bring this to the forefront here in Santa Ana. I don't see it. I see them in maybe Anaheim Unified, where they're providing data analytics, cybersecurity, and AI type of certifications for their CTE students, but I haven't quite seen that here in Santa Ana. So I'd love to see that here, but again, we need to work with our partners here because I'm not a teacher, I'm not an educator, and I'm not gonna pretend to be. And so
But
we,
also that apprentice program would be for out of school youth. 'cause
Correct.
We have that 80%
Wait,
component.
Right.
Doesn't your job description say at the end, all other?
Other duties.
yeah, yes, and Deborah has helped me to.
But honestly though, if we do another procurement, and it has become much more onerous where organizations are saying it's too much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So we still have those same rules that we have to follow even in a year. And I like your idea of doing the mentoring and the apprenticeship piece.
Yeah.
And we're meeting with Santa Ana College soon.
next week.
Maybe is that timely enough to get something, pull something together in that direction?
I think we definitely have time. I mean, we have to get strategic with what we do. The beauty behind what we have right now with our Say Employment Program in our California for All, right now we have a total of about 200 youth enrolled that we can pull from to check if they're WIOA eligible, because we know WIOA eligibility is a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
And so, and the supporting documentation that goes with that, we need to make sure to obtain that, but at least we have a pool of youth that we can start working with to see if they're eligible to provide some of those wraparound services, provide more work experience, maybe connect them with the Santa Ana College for some credential programs. I think that's a direction we can definitely go in.
With those apprenticeships, they're gonna end up, once they complete, with a higher wage, so much more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that might-
Which is huge in Orange County and everywhere, but especially.
And I'd like to get that ball rolling soon. I know again, we've never done this before. I need to learn more myself. We've never done an apprenticeship and see if maybe Santa Ana College can help us with developing this, or, you know, being the educator behind
Do
the
you have someone in
cybersecurity.
mind with at Santa Ana College? Do you have a contact there?
We're meeting with Dr. Neary, Annabelle
Okay.
Neary, and then we always have a good relationship with
Great.
Jim Kennedy.
Yes, I was gonna suggest Jim Kennedy because now I heard that he was with disabilities too. Yeah, that's great.
So I definitely think, although our program, in the past and current are amazing and continue to do amazing things for our community, I think looking at WIOA and its demands and what it requires, we really need to think outside the box and figure out how we pivot from what we used to do to how we move forward to be able to provide what it's requiring, because the strings are gonna come regardless. We can't change the strings at this point.
So I have a
So
question.
an outline, again, an outline of what is gonna be required, what we want them to write, better outline. Because the one, like a template of what we really want to see, not just a question and a bunch of questions, but more of a template of what we really want them to put into this. So that they know where our minds are, you know, it's like taking a class in college and then professor telling you, okay, go write it, and you ask, what am I supposed to write? And they turn around to you and say, write what you want, and then you get an F.
So y'all in the back there, you live and breathe this. What do you think? Honestly, be brutal if you have. to.
Yeah, this is the time.
What can we do? What do we do? It's not, it's disappearing. What should we do different?
I think it is important to partner with the schools. We were actually just speaking about that, you know, making our faces shown so they know who we are. Because I know we have, you know, we have 3 youth that are in college, but they've shared even with me, like, oh, I have a friend, and I'm like, oh, bring your friend. But then also we only can enroll 20 youth, you know. But we also have other things we have to meet, like schools that are in, you know, in school youth are only, for now, we just have 4.
Right.
So, but I think partnering with colleges would be great because they have a lot of vocational, even trades that are cheaper than going the private school route, right? Like the welding, electricians, construction workers, the pharmacy thing. There's so much. I think we just need to partner better with them. With all the colleges.
And maybe partner at the end of the senior year to tell all of the teachers what you can provide, your program can provide for those students that graduate. This is how we can help you get to this, and this. Instead of you having to do it alone.
So what do some of the rest of you think?
As for us, it is really hard connecting, with the youth and getting them a credential, because not everybody's for college. They're just trying to survive. So we try to get them the forklift, the most important certification that is gonna get them to the next step of the job. We are getting connected with the colleges. With Fullerton, we have a good connection with Santiago County College. We're looking into bringing in more certifications in-house, where it makes it less simple for a youth to attend there versus going to college. We are, and I mentioned it to Sandy and Juan, we do have the carpentry apprenticeship program in one of our sites. One of the difficult things is putting our youth there is the cost. So we're trying to figure it out, how can we connect our youth with being paid, because it's there. We just had our first cohort and they finished building their first home there. So it's kind of working with them, but I know we're getting connected with a lot of the college, the other Fullerton college.
You said the cost, what do you mean the cost?
It actually costs $4,000 to do the carpentry apprenticeship with them.
Per
Per
participant?
participant. I know I sent on the flyer, and I know we're connected with Anaheim Jobs to see if they can put it in their training a list. So our youth could attend there. And then we're also working connected together with the person who's in charge
Oh, I see.
to see where he could kind of help us with other funding where they could pay for our youth.
So one of the things she's talking about, which we currently do with our adult program, is we do vocational training. We pay up to $7,000 in vocational training to schools that are ETPL approved. So in order to use WIOA funding, the strings, in order to use WIOA funding, any school or training has to be pre-approved through ETPL for us to pay them for the training. So I'm assuming that's the issue there with that $4,000, because easily I could say, well, why don't you just cut out $4,000 from each of your youth and then incorporate that into there. But in order for us to pay for it, they either have to be procured or they have to be part of the ETPL list.
And I know the person who's in charge is working on that. There's another cohort coming up, and he said he might be able to get 2 or 3 our core members in that program. But we're just trying to find out if we get the other funding.
I have a question about the public works certificate. I thought that was a great natural fit with Conservation Corps, but you've been telling us that it doesn't seem to be a fit. What are some of the reasons why many of the participants are like?
We did enroll a lot of our youth in the first semester. Some of them got another jobs. And then when it came to the second semester, we did enroll a lot of other youth. Some of the classes were a little hard. It was very difficult for them. I know we're working closely with the dean how to make it more sufficient for them. Yes, we had 4 of them that got their certification.
Which is great.
Yeah.
Four's
the
good.
night we
Yeah,
used
4's
4.
good.
Yeah. So, we're just trying to work hard to see how can it be much easier for them.
So I guess this is where, and I know I've brought this up before, where maybe we can talk to the schools, the colleges about tiered certificates.
Yes.
So
They
that
have
they're
that.
not
They do
going
have
in, they have them, but and about us using them more because they can go in and they can get through a little section and feel success. And then they go to the next section and they feel success again. I think we keep more of them, but they keep feeling success as they go along.
Kind of like those easy wins.
Yeah.
Give them some easy wins and then. Yeah.
And I think that's where we also looked at the 2-year prong, right?
Yeah,
For
we did.
providing services, because I think when you look at a youth, 16 youth being homeless, the first priority is probably situating that and making sure that that is okay before we move on to saying, hey, you're gonna have to do about 6 months of, let's enroll you into college and get you into this certification program that's gonna require this. Oh, but wait, you're basic skill deficient too. So let's figure out how to do that because you're probably not. And so I think we need to look at a little bit more long-term and then those easy wins to see how we can put those through the system for approval and or figure out how to report them so that we're looking at placement and employment and not necessarily obtaining a credential at the current time.
And I look at apprenticeship and I look at the schools. And I start thinking about auto mechanics and the students can get a tiered certificate where all they can do is an oil change. But they got a certificate that they can do an oil change. Now they can go out to one of these companies that do quick oil changes and they can get them up. And then there's another tiered certificate where they can learn how to put brakes on. So now they've got 2 things. They could do, the oil and the brakes. So I'm wondering if we can kind of really push that with our school.
And I know that our adult side of the house too, because remember our adult side starts at 18, which overlaps with our youth. They're also open to doing co-enrollment. So if our youth or our older youth are interested in that $7,000 train up to, doesn't mean it has to be, but we can also use that as another avenue to put them through credentialing also. So that we're able to train them and get them that certification.
Well, I think even before all of this, I think the reason you're not getting agency organizations applying for these funds is just the fact that all the red tape around WDB. That's the big issue. We can provide them a template, but once they see the amount of paperwork they're gonna have to deal with, they won't wrap their head around it. WDB unfortunately demands a lot. And probably the money's not there. A lot of nonprofits, they probably want the easy grants where there's not a lot of accountability. WDB has a lot of accountability to catch. Even at this conference, a lot of these well-established nonprofits, you mentioned WDB, they're like, no, not for us. Yeah, they go for other grants.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have another comment and I just remembered something too. So some of our youth, they're motivated at the beginning and things happen. A lot of our youth, even the ones who start maybe living somewhere, our foster youth, they end up being homeless. And I mentioned we only have 4, but we actually have more. But when they started, they were not homeless. They became homeless.
Right.
So a lot of it is, say we enroll them, this happens, they're enrolled, and then they just fall off. So I think their mental health and the stress that they come, that the baggage it brings, it's really hard for them sometimes to just, be motivated because they're worried about, I don't have, I can't, my car, broke down, or I don't have laundry this week because, you know, they don't have enough money, but it's also that mental health piece. And I was wondering, I know we have insurance where we are, but even the insurance, they finish this month. So right now we're working on linking them through their medical insurance to counseling services and support groups in the community. But I think that's a big piece too that's missing, that, you know,
Mental health.
yeah.
I agree with her. Case management is 100%. We have good kids that come in and we're like, I'm gonna do great with this kid, and all of a sudden, a trauma, a family issue happened, and they don't know how to handle that trauma. They're going to, so there's a lot of focusing in case management with them. You know, when you say about the clothing, I've taken home clothes, part of their gear and uniform, and wash it for them so they can have it ready. You know, we do all those things to kind of help them out. We get calls from youth on the weekends. I know myself on the weekends, in the night, they're having any kind of trauma, they need to talk to somebody, and here we are. We do also have some insurance and counseling, and they're about to leave. They're ending this month. So we won't hope to get another set of counselors until September. And that's another situation that case management is 100% right now, especially with all the situations going on right now.
Are those counselors in their bachelor or master's program?
Masters.
Wonder if we could find like a Chapman's or whatever, they have the 18-month program where they go through in the summer, and they do their internships during the summer.
We're working with the program, I just don't remember the name, Painted Green in LA. So they're they had us out 2 counselors and they're moving in April. Transition to the next step.
What's it called again?
Painted Green in LA.
Some interns will stay a little longer,
Right, they need their.
but they
hours.
need a stipend, some kind of honorarium, you know what I mean? But if they're coming just to complete their hours and get their, you know, requirements done, they won't stay too long.
No, 'cause they need to.
So
be
that's
their
the
tuition
challenge.
Well,
yeah.
you know, the California for All has up to 700 hours at $17 an hour. If any of those interns need some pay for their volunteer hours. I'm just saying. If they're 30, we will pay them, and they'll be, at your work site doing
Okay,
mental health.
California for all. How much do they get paid?
$17 an hour.
It's not competitive,
But it's better than nothing. More than you're getting, right? If they're volunteering for free at your
So
facility,
but do they,
they get enrolled into the program.
they get enrolled?
Yes.
As if
They're also in California
though.
program. Yeah, and they would be outstationed to your post.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, that's.
So
good
there's
to know.
different options. So I think circling back,
This is creative.
Yes.
thinking outside of the box.
yes, we
I
have
like
to.
that.
We have to, so that we can address the issues or maybe the gaps where we have in WIOA that use some of our other programs and or resources to fill in those gaps. And I think that's what it comes down to, because WIOA cannot pay for everything
That's
because of
right.
the strings attached. So we need to be able to leverage other funding sources. And so I look to you guys
This
to,
is very good. We need to talk more about
Yes.
this because I agree, the mental health is a huge piece. And we started our mental health department and I have one person who's his doctorate, but I can only afford him through a totally different grant. And then he has to supervise all these interns that are working for free, so.
So is it appropriate to agendize this for further conversation at the general board?
Yeah.
so there's a couple of stuff that we need help with, you guys directing staff to potentially do, whether it's recommending maybe at the next one to keep money in-house, re-procure. The other item I had too for discussion that's related to the funding that will be remaining is looking at the remaining funds for Orange County Conservation Corps. I know that there might be some remaining funds left there and maybe allowing them to extend their contract to utilize those funding since they did have a late start for their enrollments. And this is something I spoke to their administration about, if that was an option they had requested. And so I'd bring it back to the committee to see if we would extend, not give them more money, but extend their current contract for those fundings to be able to expend everything that they received.
Something that's already working, so that might be a good idea.
Yeah.
Should there be an option for them to pick up an additional year or two? and write a proposal.
We'd have to open up the procurement again for them to do that, since they opted not to submit, they can't get additional monies, but I think as staff, we're recommending that they get an extension to their current contract to finish out their students and spend what they were awarded.
Did they say why they didn't put in a proposal?
Bob's gonna talk to them.
Well, some of you are here. Is that something that you've heard that you might, maybe, I don't know if you can speak for the whole organization, but is that something you might be interested in?
If it was for me, I would say yes, because I love helping the youth.
Mhm.
But that's a question to Catherine and Tony.
For higher staff, okay.
And that was one of the things that they did bring to my attention. When they asked, what are the options moving forward? Will there be an option, since we did not apply, to get an extension on our current agreement to be able to expend all our funds? And so I said I'd bring it back, and then I let them know. And then the other question was, can they apply? Can they receive or apply? And I'm like, well, we'd have to open it back up. And then just like anybody else in the community, they would then get that opportunity to apply
That's right.
for funding.
Would that then be a partial proposal? Would we, for the same amount of years?
Well, at this point, every agreement, we only do it for a year with the option to extend. And so then we extend them the additional year based on performance, et cetera. And so even though our procurement is for 4 years, it's almost like we don't have to go back out to procure, but given the situation that we're in and we only receive the 2, it might behoove us to actually go back out and procure to see if we can entice more agencies and or one that hasn't applied to apply for the program.
But what was the reason given for not applying?
I think it's just as been described. It's
A lot of work.
It's too onerous. It's become more and more onerous. You and I remember how many people were, organizations were involved.
There were so many here the day of the technical.
It's become so onerous and the money's not enough, and the youth are saying, well, I can go to McDonald's and other
Yeah.
things. And however, I mean, I've been out to Conservation Corps, I've been to your site and seen what you folks do and how it works. I've seen the checking in the morning and all those things. It's pretty amazing.
Thank you.
And so I think we're hearing the idea of potentially maybe having an opportunity to continue working. And your idea about expanding some apprenticeships, which we'll talk about with
Yes.
Gary.
Yes.
And you guys already have a template because you've written.
Yes.
But it would be good for any that haven't written. Because
Right.
it's like Anna has a template. Conservation Corps has a template. They've already been accepted before.
Right.
But to give other people something a little more directive, because the other one we got was gone off on all kinds of tangents
Well, that's.
because they didn't,
we weren't
they
quite
need to
ready.
be,
Yeah.
pushed in.
And in the next weeks, we should have a better understanding. I did a guesstimate of potentially what we have to work with after we've allocated the cost for admin, navigator, and I'll tell you, it's about, hold me to it because we won't know what we're getting funded, about 700,000.
Wow.
And so, again, don't hold me to it. I could be way off.
Yeah.
My accountant wasn't around. I was like, can you do this? So I did my own math. And again, if the state comes down in a couple of weeks and says, yeah, we're cutting you guys by 200,000, that's gonna change the amount that we'll have remaining. So we won't have a lot to work with. Or they might say, oh, we're gonna give you an additional 500,000. Now we're gonna be like really having to figure out what we do with those funding. But the good thing is we always work with the old money first to try to expend that because they give us 2 years
Right.
to expend those monies. And so that's kind of how we work. So we make sure that we expend all our funding.
It sounds fair to give them an extension so that they can continue to, work. They do a good job and they should be able to finish. So I think it's fair.
I think so. Can we make a motion?
Well,
A time to do that?
We're giving them input and then they will come back to us. And
Yeah.
I'd like to have this conversation continue with the full board.
We could probably prepare for the May board meeting, the workforce board meeting.
Yeah, because we have a part where the youth council gives a report, but I'd like to, maybe we can open it up into some more of us.
Dialogue.
Dialogue, thank you, yeah.
So I heard two things for the workforce board to have a study session or having the opportunity for them to discuss or listen to what's happening here on the youth fundings and different possibilities that are there, as well as then going to the board for them to agree or bless extending the contract for conservation corps. We have to go back and look at the action item. The city manager might have authority to extend it without having to going back to city council to extend it. But it's always good if they hear their commission supporting it, that the city manager feels more confident in that extension, like, okay.
But can we find out why they didn't necessarily apply?
Yeah, I think that was.
Bob's asking me that.
I've got some homework to reach out and have that conversation. Folks might say, well, let's, don't want to share that, but we have to do things differently.
Yeah.
Things have changed so much.
Yeah.
It's become so much more onerous and the funding isn't correct and the bureaucracy has become overwhelming. We're like, it's too much. But to your point, Jackie, is how do we make, we can do some things to make it a little less onerous, you know?
Again, the template,
Yeah.
it'll get them in the door. And then we have to give them maybe another template as they're working along. Instead of, I know, because I went in and took over for a little while. Not paid, but took over, not paid by but took over for a little while. And there, even though there were books with information in it, I knew I was there for a short period of time. And it was just, how could you learn all that? So maybe like some of that broken down too.
And I think
Easier.
we definitely, the technical assistance is provided, but when there's turnaround staff,
Yeah.
it's hard. It makes it
Yes.
that much harder because now we've trained
Yeah,
an individual or two and they're gone.
yes.
And then it's like, okay, we're midway through the year and we have to do it again.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the year, there's new staff. And so it then becomes, which we're there and we do it, but then you have now a new brain learning it all over again, right? And it takes a minute to wrap your head around it.
If you have a step by step, you might not need to come in for so many trainings because the new person that comes in, oh, gee, I do this, and this. That's what I do under that area. I do this, and this under this area, so that I know what my job is. Instead of maybe missing a piece of my job and then hearing from you guys, oh, you missed it.
And that's why it's important to have that YSPN component,
Yeah.
where they do meet monthly.
Yeah.
And there's that Q&A and back and
Yeah.
forth for.
And they have
Expand your
non-training.
experience enough, they have a newbie, like, okay, in a few weeks, we're gonna have to watch this to make sure they know how to get into Cal jobs.
And
Have,
We didn't have a YPN
And just-
then.
just to
they
let
may have
you,
been zooming.
Yeah.
COVID.
just to let you know, like our Anaheim counterparts in our Orange County, their staff would come to our training.
Because they don't have a middleman or.
Yeah.
So
They
I
don't
was
have
training
a
at the
place, okay,
time.
I don't know how to do this.
At the time, we were training their staff. And so of course, we were doing it anyway. So I know OCC would be like, hey, is it okay if our Anaheim staff comes and we're like, sure. It's there anyways, why not? And to that point, I did ask Tony and Catherine, what were some of the issues why they didn't apply? And there was, a lot of it went back to invoicing. The amount of paperwork that's required and the supporting documentation was one of the things that they did comment on. And then hopefully there'll be more candid with Bob on other stuff they might have not mentioned. Yes,
And who said about the invoicing, another agency?
OCC. That's one of the reasons why they didn't pursue it, the amount of work.
We require 100% verification every month.
Sure. But are these very good?
Like, something has to change. So,
Is that,
Lucinda.
is
becomes
that
too
the
much.
reason why, say, Project Kinship left? Because because of those things.
It could be that, and also they knew they were getting a large grant again from the county to work with, ex-offenders, and we all may not have fallen in their line of specialty, working with ex-offenders and the performance, whereas other ex-offender grants don't have the performance like we would.
The cost of living in California, which we're all very familiar with, and I remember thinking back to the early unions to fight for $15 an hour. That is, and we hear $17 an hour, and now I see LA Unified, their minimum wage is $23 an hour. So to live here in California, and that's. Bringing in the money is a real thing, and so when the states, well, here's a little drib, here's a little drab, it's gotta be more than, it's gotta be.
One of the things that we asked when we were at the conference, because we had individuals from different states, what's your minimum wage? What do you guys pay?
$8.
7 something.
Wow.
Federal.
Shame.
Oh, they-
Because they're not in California.
Paper,
No, it's electronic,
it's electronic,
but it could be a lot because
yeah.
it's drilling down on, workers' comp that the company may pay and they've got 20 staff. Well, we only pay our share of the workers' comp, not all the workers' comp. The methodology.
And break that down, and then the supportive services that go behind it. If you do provide it, we need the invoice, we need the tracking, we need the signature, we need the proof of receipt.
So that's not gonna go away.
No.
That's gonna go to that your
We have
department.
to, because even our accountant's trying to find an easier way.
Yeah.
Other than, we could go back where we do spot checks twice a year on a full invoice packet, but we've found sometimes there was mistakes and then we'd have to recapture money. And that cost,
When is we federally refunded again? I think it was last time.
it's up for reauthorization. I'm not,
It was Obama last.
the Obama passed it and no one knows how that even happened. That was in 2014.
It was like out of.
It
yeah.
came out of the blue, shocked everybody. It's up for reauthorization. However, with current administration, the change of Congress and Senate, it's now back into limbo again. There's no compromise from any side on any party.
There is,
So it might be continuing resolution from year to year again.
there is talk that I did hear at this conference with regards to policy and looking at the reauthorization to looking at waivers as far as serving more in-school youth, looking at the performance that we're being held accountable and how there can be waivers for that also to simplify WIOA for youth. And so they're moving towards that way. And I made a point to write a note and I need to follow up with it to see how that's gonna proceed. But there is a team of individuals on the policy side working to see how this reauthorization could incorporate some of those waivers to make it a little bit easier. And then each local area would need to apply.
They do have a waiver for the youth. However, it's only good for 1 year.
Yeah.
And when it came out last year, it came out in September. And it was to allow 40% more in-school youth, but it came out so late in the fiscal year and it was going to expire in 9 months. So if we submit it in September and don't hear back till almost December, you now have 4 months or 6 months left. And then you're back to limbo again of 80%. If they could do that, is make it like apply and it's for perpetuity or for a couple years, then it makes sense to do it. But to have a program that you don't know what it's going to be every 9 months or so. That's why I didn't come back last year to recommend that we go for it.
Is there other input from anybody in the room that offering ideas? We've shared a lot of information. I think we've given them some general direction.
Just want to recommend a guess. Similar type thing, but a checklist also of things that you want. So when you want things to come into you, I used a checklist with my job developers because they were never turning in the right paperwork to the district office in order to get a kid a job. And a checklist, and they had to make sure they had this, and this. Put the checklist on top of the paperwork, and it went in. And
And a checklist for the RFP or for the program, or
it was for what, that was just for a specific part, when at Santa Ana, that was just for.
I know, but do you recommend that for the RFP or what do you recommend a checklist of?
The documents that are necessary when it's coming to billing. What do they need? You said they need a copy of the receipt. Well, you
I
know,
think we may have
sometimes you
that.
forget about that.
I think we may have
Yeah,
something.
I don't think it's the issue of knowing how much they have to collect each time.
Yeah.
So it's not that they don't know what they need to collect, because I think OCTAC knows what, and they know what is needed, but it's just a lot.
But Outback has somebody who really knows what they're doing
Right, so when we have a new,
to organize that, whereas some of the other programs may not have that person.
so when it's awarded, we sit down and have a special training on how to do an invoice packet. In the first couple of weeks of their award. And then we also know the first quarter of their invoices are always gonna be kind of murky. And so Audrey spends more time with them, like Project Kinship, she would spend more time one-on-one with the accountant, say, okay.
I have
need more of this.
another idea, because I'm thinking again outside, not necessarily our agency, but I wonder if some of the agencies that didn't apply is because they don't feel competent that they can provide all the elements. And so maybe, just maybe, out thinking creatively outside of the box.
Yep.
It could be a good experiment this year to figure out, okay, how about if you redo the procurement again, like if you send out the bid, but that the agencies can choose to do just one or two or three elements. And let's say this one is just gonna do job development. This one is just gonna do mental health with the WIA. This one is just gonna do academic support, tutoring. I don't know, it's just an idea out there. Then we go back to the concept of the navigation, right? Is that too complicated?
You share your students between.
Yes.
places, your
I mean,
It's
we are,
not, no, but it's already embedded in the RFP. In the RFP, it indicates you do not have to apply for all 14 elements.
yes, but the agencies are thinking that I'm thinking that maybe they think that they're not as competitive and they have to. But if we make it clear that you can choose and then you can choose to collaborate with one of the existing providers, and that provider could support you in the elements that you don't have. I don't know, I'm just saying.
We
you know what I
talked
mean?
about that last year.
It's
Talked
more
about them
complex, but
working
maybe.
together.
Ideas are welcome, but
Yeah,
the-
it was a good idea last year, just. didn't go
Maybe
much
developing and adding more verbiage on that in the RFP to let them know you can partner up with coexisting agencies that are already funded and or other agencies to provide one or multiple elements.
And I feel that was done at the mandatory bidders conference. That Sandy presented, that you don't have to do all 14 and you see yourself in here, while you might be competitors, you could also
Yeah.
be collaborators.
Right.
And so maybe take the time to exchange business cards.
But for some reason, I don't know why, some organizations don't know how to collaborate.
Part of it to the money.
it's the money.
So if I'm only providing tutoring, why would I pay you 200,000 for just tutoring?
Of course.
So that too, is it worth their time to just take, right, 30,000 for just
Yeah, but-
tutoring or just mentoring or just?
That's where you decide, or the committee decides, or, that's where you decide differences
Yeah.
in funding, you know what I mean? If you provide all of the elements, okay, this is the amount. If you provide half of the elements because, I don't know, I'm just thinking outside of the box,
Mhm.
right?
Who were the agencies that were present?
Oh, I have to pull the list, but I do have them signed in.
There were at least 7 agencies. I remember Kid Works was there, but they were more focused on the ISPO. And I remember the questions that they asked was, can we just provide ISPO?
Yeah.
And you can't just provide ISPO, you have to provide both, in school and out of school.
Because of our 80%, 70% expenditure. on
That's
admin.
right.
That 80% is not because of staff.
No, I know.
It's the
Yeah.
law that says 80.
That's right.
Yeah, we say 80 so we can keep these.
There was a nice group. This room was full. That was.
I was excited too. I'm like, oh, we're gonna get quite a bit.
I'm very surprised.
It's still a lot. It's a lot to take in when you guys are talking. You're speaking about this, you understand what you're speaking about. They
And
may
we-
not understand what you're speaking about.
We allowed them November, December, and January pretty much to develop their proposal.
We tried to factor in the holidays
Yeah.
as like 3
Yeah.
weeks of unproductive,
Where normally you get 6 weeks. to do our proposal.
You know what, like I've noticed also like through Orange County workforce.
Workforce board.
Yeah, their provider list has gotten smaller too. Whereas before they used to have, you know, in the regions and stuff, they used to have 1 or 2 providers in the regions. I think last time, it's only been La Habra. That's been the one provider for like everybody.
And I think that's what more and more local boards are doing. They're saying, here's the money, we're only giving it to one person
Yeah.
and just you deal
So
with
the
it.
contract might be larger.
Because and then when I was more embedded in the employment program, out of school youth are so difficult to engage. And so of course we want to in school youth, you know, my son right now is doing the YES through the Raya Foundation and he loves it. And I hate the transporting, but like he loves it, you know?
I mean, when you think
And they're
about it,
easier.
when you think about it, if the state would make some changes and focus more on the prevention element of,
Yeah.
focus more funding for in-school, so we don't get the out of school out there without the
We'll
job.
track the waivers that are coming down.
Yeah.
That's right. I mean, I'm just saying that that's something that hopefully could be.
Even if we do in-school youth, they still have the outcome, still have the
Yeah.
required outcome.
That's
not gonna
right.
change.
Or a track, so that when they're done, with school, that they're going straight into college.
Or a CTE program in
Yeah.
college.
Right.
So we'll go ahead.
No, I was just gonna circle back to what they were saying about the mental health is the first thing that you have to tackle, because, you know, one of my young
That's one
men
trauma.
that was at Conservation Corps, you know, you enroll them while they're in placement, right? But then they hit 18 or they hit 19, they decide they want to be on their own and they have no idea how hard it's gonna be, and so they end up, you know, destabilizing themselves and it's mentally challenging. When they can't think about work, they can't think about, you know, education or getting anything like that.
Mental health and housing are 2 big priorities too, housing. So partnering with these housing.
That's the other thing we need to bring to this table in particular is somebody from mental health.
Yeah.
And we still need our probation person. So if any of you guys have contacts that are open to, I'd love to have them here at the table too, because I think those are 2 components that we're missing is probation and mental health.
I don't know, if mental health for us would be a Orange County Healthcare Agency.
Can we get the colleges for mental health?
There's a lot of resources for that.
Yeah.
And then also, there's mental health services in the colleges that we can connect there. It doesn't have to be OCA,
Right,
right? And then,
our students that are
Yeah.
towards the end that, they all gotta do it. Why not do it with our program?
School districts are hiring mental health interns. Hiring.
like versus going to multiple agencies, right? I gotta go to OC, you know, public health or my mental health, my counselor, I gotta go. You can go to the college, 'cause they have that once you get enrolled.
So any other input before we move on to the rest of the agenda? Yeah.
That we're running with, for example, like the colleges, we have to use that. are in college. We suggested, hey, you know, follow up with a counselor at school, they're completely booked. So then. after that, It's just like, it's a headache too, because we're like, we want to provide tools, but then we can't because it's like, we're kind of tied up anywhere we go. And then
Yeah.
unfortunately, mental health is kind of year round.
I think that's where like we want, like going to the Santa Ana, if you guys go to that meeting and making, they have to set aside something for, you know, these youth in these programs, right? Like they set aside foster youth priority or things like that, like making that arrangement where it's coming, if the referral is coming from like, you know, the outside provider from our employment program, you know, can you guys, you know,
Can they jump the line so it'd be a priority service?
Anything else?
Well, this is great. Thank you so much for the feedback. We'll definitely take back to the Workforce Development Board those suggestions, potentially keeping money in-house, extending OCC's agreement to finish expending their funds, and then also re-procuring out with more specifics with regards to what we want. And then that whole component of not having to apply for all 14 elements or do all 14 elements, but maybe specialize in specific ones and or partner up with other entities to be able to provide those services.
Yeah, I like the partnering. I liked it when we talked.
I mean, you can just maybe consider rethinking with when it comes to the funding stream and identifying what are the key elements that are extremely important for all the providers, mental health, academic support, work, and then saying, okay, we're gonna set aside this amount of money for additional tutoring services, this amount for mental health, this amount for workforce. I'm just saying that maybe thinking in a different way to see what happens. I don't know. Yes, different categories. I don't know if that's even possible.
We could definitely look at it. I mean, I think it's off the table. We can look at it and see how we restructure, how we do stuff moving forward. I mean, we did do a procurement for 4 years. It doesn't mean we have to stick to it.
Yeah.
Like I said, we can go back and procure, and then for the next 4 years, if we get something else, and then so forth. Right now, the one agreement, it will expire for the new one. If they do approve it, it's till June of 2024. Thereafter, if we.
The procurement's good.
Yes, the procurement's good for another 4 years, so we could extend that contract and do another year. It's not for the full 4 years. If that makes sense, so.
Okay, let's go on to staff member comments.
None.
We've got- council committee comments.
Too much, right?
I'm just gonna add.
I'm gonna be back.
We talk a lot about mental health, and so I read somewhere where they're saying it's also another way of looking at it is mental fitness. I mean, we talk about mental health, but it's mental fitness because it's just like working out or exercise or anything else. It's an ongoing process that ebbs and flows based on the situations in life. So I kind of like, okay, I mean, terms are terms, and we all know what we're talking about, but sometimes words make a difference. So,
Yeah.
Other than that, anything else from anybody? Okay, thank you, everybody, for all your input. It's very valuable. We gotta get back to the way it used to be.
Yes,
We
yeah.
do. I think, remember.
Yeah.
So, the next meeting will be, June 8th, and the regular workforce development board meeting is in May.
May 18th, it's on a Thursday in person, so I'll be making lots of calls leading up to that. to make sure everyone knows,
Great.
and it'll be hosted here in this room.
In the room. Okay, all right, great. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
Thank you to my rating committee. Thank you.
You could give me your parking ticket.
Yes.
The gate here on Civic School Drive is up. The one. So